My name is Patrick Wilson. I'm joined by my co-host Sam Wismer and special guest Yariv Wolok. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, that's good enough. Yariv.
Yariv Wolok.
Yeah,
I apologize.
that's all
And
good.
this is the Pucking Flyers podcast.
You can say a whole bunch of things. At the end of the day, you have to show it.
You want to get the fans going in your own building? Hit Crosby, and then he has a set of hands that are incredible.
Back through the legs, off the skate. Domi doesn't pick it up. Too much ice to cover for everybody.
A save by Hart. Wow.
He got right to left. Incredible goal by Giroux. Watch this. Puck protection and elevates that shot.
Giroux walks through. Oh my goodness. This is something special right here.
Be a Flyer.
Again, I apologize for your name. The first time Sam mentioned you, I actually got your name right. And now I'm probably going to get it wrong.
Dude, I don't care. Look, I must be one of the only Israelis that are like definitely in hockey media. There's definitely a small amount of us, so not many people have seen the name Yariv. I'm not too worried about it.
All right. Well, either way, I still apologize.
It's all good.
I'm horrible at names.
Apology accepted, but I don't care. It's all good.
Okay.
No,
And I'm going to apologize if you hear screaming children in the background.
that maybe you should apologize for, and we're going to have to find out what's going on with those children.
it's I may have
It's
a mother to
all
take care of
good,
them.
Sam. I know. Just teasing.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 21 of the Pucking Flyers podcast. Today, we will be going over the Flyers draft class, the injury bug that keeps going around because the Flyers cannot seem to escape it right now, the Tony DeAngelo trade. We will be going over the qualifying offers that they released today, and then the development camp as well. So, guys, why don't we start with the Flyers draft class?
And also just touch on the Ivan Fedotov situation.
Yes, and Ivan Fedotov. I got to put him on here too. Totally butchered his last name, but writing quickly, I don't care at this point. So, the Flyers draft class. I have them pulled up right now. So, in round one, the Flyers picked, I'm going to butcher some of these names.
Cutter Gauthier?
I believe.
Did we butcher it?
It's Cutter Gauthier.
Gauthier.
Did we
Okay.
butcher
Cutter
it?
Gauthier.
Which is a good thing because John loves when we can't pronounce the names. They got to be good at hockey if you can't pronounce a name. That's his theory. Then we have in the third round, they picked Devin Kaplan, which was a very good pick. In the fifth round, they selected Alex Bump. In the sixth round, they selected Hunter McDonald, which hopefully he's not related to Andrew McDonald. And then in round 7, they selected Santeri Soku and Alexis Gendron. So let's go over Cutter Gauthier first. I probably still butchered that. I'm horrible.
Gauthier.
I'm telling you. Gauthier. I'm horrible with names.
Cutter
I keep calling
actually,
him Sam Wright too.
from what I understand, his mom is has Reading or lived in Pennsylvania or is from Pennsylvania. His father played for the Reading Royals, from what I heard or read or saw somewhere. So he has ties into the organization.
He played in Reading. I don't know if it was the Royals at the time. Maybe it wasn't the Reading Royals.
Maybe
He did play hockey in Reading at the time.
yeah.
But I don't know if it was the Royals, but that is true, yes. So he does have roots in the area. His mother and his grandmother are from Reading in the Philadelphia area. And then he was born in Sweden while his father was overseas. Well, with his mom, obviously.
Yeah, that confuses me because it says he's a Swedish-born American.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So he was born when his father was playing in Sweden. Then they moved back here to Arizona, I believe. And that's where he lives today.
So Pat, he
Oh,
was
okay.
born in Sweden, but he's American.
okay, so, all right. Now, yeah,
Well, he
that
has
whole
dual
thing
citizenship,
confuses me.
technically, right?
Yeah,
But both of his parents are American, but he himself was born overseas.
yeah,
Just because of the coincidence he was in, which is really interesting to think about. And to be honest with you, what I really like about it is I'm a huge fan of like Swedish hockey players. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, they're really good two-way. You think about like a Peter Forsberg, a Zetterberg, even a Sundin. You just think about all those like centers, and then you combine that with the American game. Like, it's like a perfect hockey player. So that's all I'm
yeah.
saying.
So something I like is he is 6'2" and 201 pounds already at the age of 18, and he's only going to get bigger.
Same
a big
size as
kid.
Nolan Patrick. Almost identical size as Nolan Patrick.
Yuriv, you're cursing him already. Stop.
I'm not cursing him at all. Actually, I would like to propose a little different to y'all. This is kind of our second chance of what we were trying to get out of Patrick. If you look at their games, I would not say that their games are identical. Like, I wouldn't look at the two of them and be like, oh, they play the same. So that is not what I'm saying. But if you look at the attributes in which they bring, which is a big, brooding, like power forward-esque type of, I mean, in this case, we're going to call him a center in the NHL that can play a top 6 to top line role in the NHL. That's what we were trying to get out of Patrick. So it's a second chance.
Sorry, I couldn't do that. My bad.
What do you mean? Oh,
His name is Patrick.
took me a second,
Oh,
went over my head.
God.
But in fairness, and I mean a lot in that, like, if you look at the type of player we were going for, there's a reason why Slavkovsky moved up, and they were rumored about trying him at center too. Like, if you can create a big, strong center who is defensively responsible, powerful around the net, and can score, like actually shoot, and like kind of create plays, not to the level like even Johnny Gaudreau, but enough to drive play, like a Sean Couturier, even at the very least, right? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's so valuable to an NHL team, like vastly more valuable than Alex DeBrincat, who is an awesome young player, but any team would take, an 80-point center versus an 80-point winger.
Yeah. And the good thing about Gauthier is that he can go back and forth between wing and center when we need them. So if we have like excess wingers, we can move him to center, and he can still excel there. Because I think we drafted him as a left wing.
And it's not like a Morgan Frost situation where you're putting Morgan Frost and you're moving him from position to position, because Morgan Frost is good at one position and not good at the other. Trust me, I've seen him play it.
This is actually very different than, I'm sorry to like interject, but the story behind Cutter Gauthier's center position, and again, this is me doing research now. I'm not like an expert on the guy, okay? But the story behind it, and this is coming from him and other sources that I've heard, is that he started off playing center. He's been playing center majority of his career, young career, right? Like through juniors, through the programs that he's been playing. When he got to the U.S. program here at the USNTDP, right, which is the highest level they have, they're such a talented, I don't think people realize how talented the crop was this year. Like, you look at the amount of first round picks that were taken that were from the U.S. You look at the Flyers draft picks, and it's obviously from the U.S. program. It's such a strong program that they slid him over so he could play with Logan Cooley, so he could play on their top line. And Logan Cooley was their number one playmaking center, but he was a center prior to that. When Logan Cooley got injured, he moved over to play center, and I think he had a hat trick in one of the games in the tournaments they played in. I think he had like a 4-point game. He was even better at center. If you really look at his game, he is a centerman. He can play wing, but if you look at the way he plays, they're not. Am I hearing that beeping? Is that just you guys? Oh, okay. I was hearing beeping.
We're good.
Anyway.
We're good.
Okay. Well, if you look at his game, it's not exactly like anybody we've kind of seen. Like you don't look at his game and go, "Oh, it's Jeff Carter," right? You're like, it's not exactly Jeff Carter. You're like, "Oh, Sean Couturier." It's not Sean Couturier. Is it Ryan O'Reilly? No, not really. I think he has this certain collection of tools that like we'll see how he develops, like how he molds out. But I think he could be anywhere. Like who knows if he'll be a Leon Draisaitl? Like Leon Draisaitl wasn't Draisaitl when he was drafted, but he's drafted with those same tools, those same gifts in mind. So if he can develop them, and he seems like a very, very competitive kid, if he can develop them, I mean, it's kind of up to him on how good he will be.
And I had to tell a couple people this, and I even said it on Thursday when we were live, that even if somebody is drafted first, sometimes your best player isn't your first round draft pick.
That's true.
Yeah, there have been plenty of 5th round draft picks that have been top players in the league.
I mean, even Roman Josi was a 2nd round pick. You would say he's the best player on Nashville, probably.
Yeah,
right?
Probably.
A lot of the best defensemen in the league are taken in the 2nd round, actually.
We didn't have a 2nd round this year, did we?
Mm-hmm. I don't think we have an extra 3 years, actually.
Oh,
right,
great.
This year, next year, and the following, because we traded 1-4, and I know we'll get to that. Not to jump ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good.
That's my second team. We gave that all up to my second team.
Technically, that's our first team, but we won't go there. We need John to go there for that. I know for a fact that Cutter is going to be going to Boston College his first year. So this year coming up, he'll be at Boston College. And then he said he's ready to play for the Flyers basically after that. So he wants to be on the Flyers team during the 2023-2024 season. So he's going to, as long as he does good in that training camp, I feel like he's going to bring a lot of fire under him, and he's going to be ready. It sounds like he's ready to play, but I want to see that. I want to see that fire under him, and I want to see him come out fire blazing.
You're saying into the NHL this year, or you're talking about for Boston College?
For Boston College, now that he's drafted, I want to see him produce a lot more, which will then just boost his confidence going into training camp next year, which will then hopefully get him a nice spot on the Flyers, because we need a goal scorer. And he can definitely do that. So
yeah, I mean, I agree. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. Like, I wanted a defenseman to be drafted in the first round for us at the 5th pick. I feel like we need defensemen the most, but after doing a little bit of research on him and looking up some highlights and everything, I'm excited. And he shows a lot of confidence. He shows a lot of fire, and he looks really excited to be drafted by the Flyers, even with how atrocious they were this year. So that says it all to me. Like, I just can't wait, and we'll see what happens. Just as long as if he doesn't go to the Flyers next year, if he's like on the Phantoms next year, like after Boston College, as long as we don't yo-yo him back and forth like we did with Morgan Frost. I hate when they do that. Like, get a young, or not a younger guy, but get like a lower level guy that we can yo-yo back and forth. I'd rather lose a couple games and properly develop a younger player than yo-yo the player back and forth between both teams.
Max Woolman was used for that a lot this year.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You hate when they do that. I would like to know what the roster is week to week. I don't know what the roster is week to week half the time.
Yeah. Well, last year was a disaster. Let's hope that the team's not run the same way. Yeah, I never want to. But I do want to talk more about Gauthier, because I think there's like a really large hint of skepticism towards like Gautier to some degree, not to the sense of like, oh, will he be a good player? Nobody looks at him and goes, oh, will that guy be an NHL player? I think everybody goes, yeah, he's got it. We'll see. Maybe he's a third line player, worse, right? Which I think is fair. I totally think it's fair. But I do think that the reason we missed on the 2017 draft is the reason we miss on every draft is that, or not on every draft. The reason, like, when things aren't so obvious to us, and not just us, NHL teams, and this is fair. The reason it's called a weak or average draft, not because there's no players in it that can produce to be elite superstars. It's because it's not so clear that they are, right? So you're thinking of it from an opportunity standpoint of like mitigating risk, right? And I'm taking a draft pick. So if I have somebody like Connor McDavid, without a doubt, that kid walked in the league 100-point player. You're not questioning that pick, right? But some of these other guys, you're like, man, is this guy a 60-point player? Like, he's already pretty good, but can he be a 100-point player, right? And I feel like that's where a lot of these drafts really are. And that's how we got to Cale Makar, because they're like, okay, could he be a 50-point defenseman in the NHL and just a really good puck mover? And, we've seen them before. And like, yeah, it'd be pretty good for your team. But he'll play like a number 3, maybe a number 2. Maybe he's a Gossas Bear. Maybe he's Cale Makar, who's another Bobby Orr, right? Like, that is unlikely, but that is the max, right? And it went under the radar because it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear with him. It wasn't clear with Heiskanen. It wasn't that clear with Patrick. Though with Patrick, I do stand by the fact his career was destroyed by injury. Even look at him. He's great young career, but already like Jack Hughes has outdone him, right? To some degree, right? Just like there's a good chance maybe they won't hit like the best player in the league, but they're going to still be star players. And some of them might even be the best players. So I think that's like the Gautier thing is you took a guy, if it all comes together, the ceiling is stupid high. Like, I do think that like Leon Draisaitl, if he's not on the Oilers, he probably, people are like, oh, is he as good as McDavid? But they don't even bother because they're on the same team. It's like it's like the Crosby Malkin thing. Like, if we can get the Malkin in a draft, even, like, I'm good with that, right? I don't know if he's going to be the Claude Giroux level player, but I do think the tools are there to be that guy. It's just up to him. But I think the impact of a player like that, and I stand by this might sound ridiculous to people, and that's fine, and I understand why. But if you add an elite center, and again, I'm saying an elite center, like at minimum as good as like Elias Lindholm from Calgary, like a guy who's definitely putting up 80 to 100 points in the league and can play with any top player in the league. You add one of those onto these teams, a center, not a winger, not a Goudreau, a guy who can impact like most elements of this game. This team is immediately a playoff team. And I stand by that. If you can really find one of them, having said that, super difficult to do. Like, if we could have added Jack Eichel and it's like really Jack Eichel, that's a trade you go in on. So that's why you go for a guy like Gautier. That's why you hold on to the pick, because you're like, if this turns out, this gets us out of the basement like that. And that's why losing on Patrick was such a, demoralizing.
That was a tough one.
It was demoralizing to the entire fan base.
Yeah, that absolutely was. But hey, if he can produce 80 to 100 points when he becomes developed, I'm happy. I'll be more than happy.
If the plan that you laid out, which I agree with you, right? Go to college, play center on a big public stage, maybe win the Hobey Baker, make a name for yourself. Like, everybody should be rooting for you, and then come in, and if you can be a 50 to 60 point player on this team for year one in the NHL, that is an absolute game changer. And like, for example, Nate McKinnon put up, I think it was like 66 points his first year or something like that. He didn't destroy it, So if you can come in and put up numbers like that, that's what we need.
Honestly, in his first year, I'd be okay with like 30 to 40, because
Patrick
I get. All right, then 40.
People underestimate what Patrick did. I'm telling you, abdominal core surgery. Think about what happened to Hayes this year. Patrick came into the NHL with that surgery and still put up 30 points as a 19-year-old on an average team.
Yeah, now he just needs to get his chronic headaches under control.
Happens all the time, man.
I feel so bad for the kid.
I do.
I really do.
I do.
The injuries really absolutely screwed him.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from someone who has severe and chronic migraines, it's a lifelong battle. But some months I have him under control, some months I don't. So
Mhm.
I really feel for Nolan.
And it's like in his development years. Like think about that awesome interview. What was his name? Mike O'Connell, the head of player development for the Flyers. He had a press conference today. And he was talking about like, oh, do you feel that the players progressed? And he's like, well, he's only been here for a year. He's like, they haven't really had a real season. He's like, a lot of these guys played like 6 games over the past year. And he's like, I can't tell you if they progress. He's like, ask me in a couple months. And it's like you hear a guy who's in charge of player development say that to you. And I understand people freak out and they want results and all that stuff, but that is the reality that we're living in with players missing time.
Yeah, and
Frost included.
with this injury bug, a lot of players have missed time.
Yeah, I mean, you have, sorry, Pat, you have players like you have Wade Allison, who was out a lot because of injury. You had Tanner Lazinski, who missed almost a year due to hip injury and needing surgery. And when he came back, he played like he hadn't missed a step. You got Tyson
That's
Forrest
always good to see.
Yeah, and
they're saying he did miss a step. That's the best part about it. Is that Mike O'Connell said it today. He's like, Lazinski came back. He's like, he said he was fine. He's like, but I could see it. He's like, he didn't have the same fluid movement. He's like, he was great out there, but I love that because he has another ceiling. We need to make that.
I remember asking him in a press conference, how do you feel after coming back from injury? And he's like, I have to get like my footing back and everything. So like Tanner knows, but like if you're watching from your seat and you're watching from the press box, it looks like he didn't even miss a step.
That's because he's good. He is good.
I like that answer.
I love Tanner.
I think elements of this team are highly underestimated because of what's happened here, and it's understandably so. I don't think anybody is not justified to be skeptical of every single thing here. That's fine. That'll drive you nuts, though. But the reality is that this is not like a bottom of the league. It's not a bottom of the league organization. We've stumbled along the way. I do agree with that, but things are fixable. You put the right people in charge. There's stuff to work here. There are talented players here, and we did get hit hard by injuries, and we're still getting hit. And we already have Farabee out, and now Bobby Brink's, I think, about to go through hip surgery as well. So it's just like this team just can't catch a break. We still don't know if Wade Allison's going to be healthy for next year. Like, he is, but is he? I love Wade Allison. I want to say that immediately on my starting roster in the NHL. I do want to make that clear.
The thing that Sam loves the most about John and I, whenever Wade Allison's name comes up, we go, so all you got to do is blow on him and he's injured.
Yeah. Which is crazy because he's such a tough kid. It's like, it just shows you it's like a genetic thing. Glass.
It's got to be. I don't know.
His milk.
He goes in hard hitting every time.
He went on a really good streak at the end of the season there, and he was playing almost every game and wasn't hurt. So let's knock on wood.
I'll be honest with you. If I was GM, and I don't know the answer to this because I imagine that they're doing this, I would be like, look, we need to reevaluate the way you live your life, not because you're doing something particularly wrong, but because maybe you do have an affinity to get injured. So we need to see, how do we prolong your body? Like, what do you need extra? Do you need extra iron in your diet? Whatever it is, I would try to figure it out. I get a lot of scientists in there looking at these guys, which I'm sure they have. Like, I'm not an expert. I have not been allowed inside of the Flyers facility yet. Not to that level. Yeah. I guess I could ask these questions to Zach, but he is retiring. But
I like the confidence, though, the yet.
Yeah. Well, dude, you never
One
know.
day.
I'm only 35. There's time. But no, I sincerely, I think that I think a lot of people, you look for that flash guy, but we just got Cutter Gauthier and people are still like, well, he's not the super. It's like, all right, enough. Like, I understand everybody wants like Kirill Kaprizov, but you didn't know Kirill Kaprizov was Kirill Kaprizov when you even drafted him. So like, I think we have a tendency to be, we shouldn't get too excited, but we also shouldn't get too negative and be like, we know this is going to suck. We don't. Otherwise we wouldn't watch.
Yeah. Something that John mentioned last podcast was that Everybody has somebody in mind that they wanted the Flyers to pick, and if they didn't pick him, it's like whoever the Flyers picked. Oh no, they're done. Like this, they're
I
gonna
wanted
suck.
Nolan Patrick.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I heard it. I heard a lot of people in the Flyers organization wanted Cale Makar, and Ron Hextall went against that.
I think
Well,
it's more. I think there's probably an argument about it within the organization.
From what I hear, Ron Hextall is Ron Hextalling out in Pittsburgh, so we're good.
Oh, because of Malkin, the Malkin situation.
Yeah.
He just signed Letang to 6 years on a really reasonable contract for them. I mean, but it's 6 years, but $6 million. He'll sign Malkin.
Oh, that's not
probably
that's not
for
bad
cheap.
at all.
I hope Malkin goes to UFA because that would be my number one target. 10 years, $3 million or something like that. Or 3 years. 10 million, 3 years. Something like that. I don't know. I would offer him like, I don't know if 10 million, but I would offer him like a lot of money for a short term. Like I said, you add an elite center and you're a playoff team. So if you add Evgeny Malkin and your down the middle attack is Evgeny Malkin, Sean Couturier, and Kevin Hayes, and then you literally name all of our other wingers, you line them up with those three centers and you attack with all three lines, it's at least a playoff team, healthy. Even with the defense, like again, people can judge this team for what it is. It did not have Sean Couturier on it. It had half of Kevin Hayes, if you could even consider that. You know what I mean? The amount of injuries and all that. It just wasn't a great team even on the ice. Like we didn't ice a great team either.
Yeah, and this year I just felt like there was no real chemistry or anything. A lot of times it just kind of seemed like they would just dump the puck into the other zone and then wait to defend. Like it just wasn't exciting to me.
Can I ask you guys this? Do you guys think that Lane Vigneault should have been coached to start the beginning of the last season?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, give him that extra chance. Yeah.
Even though, do you remember those New York Ranger games? And again, Rangers were a better team. It's fine. Do you remember when we lost to them 2 games in a row? It was like 9-3 and like 9-1.
They got outscored 17-2. No, I don't remember that at all.
Exactly. How many coaches in Flyers history have ever survived that? It happened to him again, not as brutal, and he got fired. I honestly, that was the only time I've ever seen a coach in the Flyers uniform survive that. And I don't mean that just 2 games. The team was already playing terribly and then got absolutely embarrassed where they clearly did not show up at all for the coach. It was a clear sign that he lost that locker room. It was gone. It was gone. At that point, it was completely gone. And Fletcher, at the very least, right out the season, that I understand. But in that offseason, you should have known that you need a new coach. Whatever the rationale was, like I can see it. Even maybe Vigneault's a good guy and they had a good relationship. Like totally get it too. But at the same time, like you look at the results on the ice that season, he lost the locker room.
Yeah, he definitely lost it. That was a definite.
And then the compounding amount of trades that we made and all that stuff to try to get better quickly, to be like, oh, we'll get you what you need, Vigneault, and then
we
fired that worked out.
Cost of inaction.
Yeah.
I feel like the only trade that worked out last season was Cam Atkinson. Cam performed with what he got, with what he had on the ice.
Yeah. I think.
Well, we got Zach McEwen through free agency, right?
Yeah. He's a good. I would say he was a valuable. Him and Brown, I think, were valuable. And Aube-Kubel is available right now. He was just released. So.
I wouldn't.
That was because he dented the cup.
Yeah, he likes to ding things.
Yeah. I mean, I think there'll be a market for him. I don't think he's coming here. I think, though, if you guys want to get into the qualifying offers thing, the list that came out today outside of the Flyers one is very interesting. Oh,
well. Just real quick, though. Michael here says...
Sorry. When will the Flyers stop recycling coaches? I have nothing against Tortorella, but the Flyers need new blood. Mike, we don't know.
In a way, that's what I was saying too. The whole time, every time we talked about getting a new head coach, there was me saying I don't want the big name guy that already like won a cup and has already spent years and years in the NHL. I want a newer coach, whether it's like 0 years experience to 5 years experience. I want a newer coach that can upgrade with the way the NHL is going at this moment, instead of where Tortorella, I believe, I think he's going to try and bring old school hockey back to the Flyers. They're going to try to, when you can't really do that in this day and age. It just doesn't work anymore. The game of hockey is going in a completely different direction. But
do you mean from a system standpoint or from a personnel management?
More like, I feel like more of a system standpoint.
Okay. I think that's more of a fair worry that he hasn't kept up with the game. I think the people management element, I think, is the huge benefit of having him personally. The game, though, to your point, I think that is the worry with a lot of the older coaches. You know, the game has evolved. Are you still stuck in your ways, or are you adjusting?
Yeah, and that's what I'm worried about. That's why I wanted like a newer, younger coach that really I mean, you don't really know their name yet, and I'd rather see them on the Flyers for 2 to 3 years just to see what they can do, rather than get an older guy that is going to be stuck in his ways. I mean, we'll see what happens with Tortorella. You never know. He could adapt to the new way hockey's going and make the Flyers a great team again. But with the experience that I've seen from having those big name coaches constantly coming in and having like the older coaches coming in, it doesn't work. It might work for half a season to a season, but then that's it. And I'm tired of that.
Can I say that I think that things are going in the direction that you do not want them to go in?
I know. I know.
And I'll say this, okay? And I'm just using like recent history, and if you just look at the compounding moves that are being made, you know, the Flyers drafting size specifically, that was evident, right? Bigger, stronger players. You look at the Tortorella, the old school attitude, like even knows the brand of the Flyers. Like he even talked about it. You know, he remembers the Flyers that I grew up with too, the ones that he played against that had snarl and size. And even if we weren't good, you were not leaving our stadium without getting punched in the face. It just wasn't happening. Like if you scored a goal on us, you're getting punched in the face. But that was like the trade-off. It's like, fine, but we're going to fight you regardless. Yeah. Even unreasonably, to like the games wouldn't even end to some point. And I think there is this kind of need for a callback. You compound that with Tony DeAngelo being signed. Again, look at it from this respect that it's a kid with a guy with a lot of snarl, right? He's got anger issues. Let's be honest. We know it to some degree. He's an angry kid from South Jersey, but he's from here, right? You look at the Johnny Gaudreau stuff, which I do believe that they are in conversations with him. He's another South Jersey kid. They just drafted a South Jersey kid. They're drafting big guys. They brought John Tortorella back. They're literally trying to call back and be like, and look, I think this is actually kind of smart. And maybe people disagree with me. You look at the draft of Cutter Gauthier, it does call back to like kind of older Flyers when you have a big, strong center. I think the Flyers are trying to brand themselves back to kind of what they were. We're like, okay, even if we're not the best team on the ice next year or this upcoming year, we're not going to be an easy team to play against. We're going to beat you up physically. We're going to be in your face. We're going to be angry. Our coach is going to yell at you. He's going to yell at the players. Like, you're not coming in here. It's not going to be 9-1 anymore. Like, it's 5-0. You're getting punched in the face. Like, Zach McEwen just got an RFA. Like, again, Ristolainen, Even Tony D'Angelo will now start with you. He'll create problems with your coach, argue with your team. And again, people might not like that, but again, it's an identity. This team's dead. They're boring. There's nothing. There's no life. And I'm not saying we need to be undisciplined, but we need to be disciplined, but we need to be a team with an identity. And I do think that's something that Tortorella can do. And I think that's why they didn't go young. Not because there isn't a point to what you're saying, but I think they were worried that like we need somebody to come in here and bring the culture to us, because right now ours is broken. Like our last coach, like it just fizzled out. Like it just fizzled. He was a good coach at first. I don't know. I think it can work.
I mean, no, you're good. I think it can too, but we just got to give it a little bit of time. Yes. I'm still worried that the old school hockey is going to try and come out of them, which doesn't really adapt well to the new brain hockey. But that's probably my only worry with Tortorella.
I think that's fair, though. I think it's look. We watched a lot of. I'm sorry, Sam. Let me just get this out. We watched a lot of the number one coaches. If you look at the top coaches in the league, pretty much all of them got fired recently, like within the past few years. All of them have been fired recently. So something to think about. There is kind of like a cycle here. Does that mean Tortorella's there? No, I think like he said, this is probably his last 4 years in the league here with us.
So Mike said, honestly, I wish Kirk McDonald, who, if you guys don't know, was the Reading Royals head coach until he just resigned to go coach in the USHL, was the new Flyers coach. He did so well in Reading, and I think he would have brought out the best in the young guys. If it was not for Kirk McDonald, Matt Strome would not have a career right now. He turned Matt Strome's career around.
You talking about to get him the point to be a center?
Yeah.
I mean, fair enough, but I also feel like jumping from Reading straight to the Flyers might be too big of a jump. He might not be ready for that.
That's like a assistant. You'd bring him in as an assistant, I think, in that case.
Yeah. That's
typically what you would do. I'll be honest with you, I don't think Lappy's coming back as head coach of the Phantoms. I don't think he's gonna be fired. But the fact they haven't announced it, and he wasn't at dev camp or something. I think he's not at dev camp. It's really weird. They're always at dev camp. Like the head coach.
I can't keep making relationships with head coaches right now.
Look, I'm not saying he's gonna be fired. I just think that they're gonna bring in a head coach for the Phantoms. It's not acceptable. The Phantoms suck. I'm not saying he's responsible. Saying when did the Flyers and the Phantoms turn into teams that accept mediocrity? That is new, and we do it a little more than we should. Not to the level that people scream about, but like I said, that AV example. I think again, I don't know how you go into the following season with the same head coach after you're just embarrassed on the world stage the entire season.
But
look, they just fired Barry Trotz. On the island. He wasn't embarrassed.
Wasn't Lappy signed to like a contract?
I mean, was an AV. Look,
sure.
I'm not saying they're firing him either. They've moved him around quite a bit. They probably like him a lot. They might promote him to something else and just be like, well, maybe you're not a coach. Maybe I'm wrong, but the Phantoms weren't very good last year. And I'm not saying it's his fault though. But that's not my point. My point is there's a level of expectations, and in sports, like I'm just surprised. Does he buy himself some time? Maybe. I just find it surprising he hasn't been named. You know, we know our head coaches for the Flyers. Why don't we know the Phantoms at this point? We don't know much about the Phantoms actually.
Yeah.
Except they're going to be young.
I'm being questioned hard right now, and I don't know any answers.
What are the questions?
What's going on in Lehigh? Who's going to be the head coach? And I'm like, as of right now, I just know Lappy is head coach. As of right now, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
That's something the Flyers organization, I feel like, has been doing a lot these past few years. Is they've been leaving the fan base out of the loop until something happens.
Which I think it's fine to some degree, but the fact that your relationship with the fan base is so tarnished right now, you don't have that luxury to leave fans in the dark. They're gonna assume the worst. Like we're assuming the worst with like everything. The fans are assuming the worst with everything. Even Gautier, it's like, oh, he's good. He's not that good though. Like, okay, what else you got? You know, it's Tortorella, but you know, is he the guy? You brought in Tony D'Angelo, but will he really work as a top pairing? Which I find really interesting, by the way, because he did it the entire season on a much better team, one of the best defensive teams in the league. But then the idea for the Flyers to try it here is like kind of like, oh, why would you even think about doing that? Because you have Ivan Provorov and you pair the two together. It makes sense why you assume that Ivan Provorov can play the role that Jacob Slavin does in Carolina. I don't think it's crazy at all. I think it makes complete sense. Will it work? We'll see.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We'll find out.
I mean, have you guys seen Tony D'Angelo play offense at least? Like the power play. I mean, we haven't had a power play quarterback. Ryan Ellis theoretically maybe could have been that way, but it looks to me it's more than Ryan Ellis. It's like this guy's like a sniper. This guy's a shooter, like a high-end shooter, like capable of having hat tricks in a game. We haven't had one like that for a while.
If we can get him and Cam York as the power play quarterbacks, because Cam York did really well as a power play quarterback
for US and TDP.
Yeah, even in the Flyers, I thought he did pretty well. It's just the players around him couldn't get it in the back of the net. It seemed like whenever he was out there on the power play, they're in the offensive zone for the most part. He was keeping the puck in a good spot for the Flyers to be able to get some shots on the net.
Cam can be very annoying on power plays.
I'm glad he's on my team.
Why is that?
I just feel like he's just like one of those antagonizers. Like he's a Jerry Mayhew out there because he's small enough to be in the right places.
Oh yeah. He's a facilitator. He's got to work on his shot a little bit to not necessarily get through. He's got a pretty good shot as far as getting through traffic, but power. But I think he's young. Next season, potentially, like, look, if he breaks out next year, that changes a lot for this D. There's too many question marks, and that's why people question the Flyers. I get that. If this guy, if that guy, totally understand. But you have to just look at each case. If you look at what York brought, he's ahead of schedule pretty much in every aspect people have thought. Nobody thought he'd be in the NHL next year. I mean, I did. I was saying it the whole time. He's going to be in the NHL. He could have been in the NHL to start the year. I still stand by that. I'm glad they didn't, because with the way this team played, it would have been a nightmare to throw a kid into that. And that's why they brought Yandel in, hoping that, let's not force him into the league. But overall, like, you look at the way he played versus the rest of the defense. Would you say he was worse than our NHL defenseman? No. He was already NHL ready. The kid is primed to be a top pairing, probably complementary top pairing defender. Will he hit that? I don't know. It's hard to get to that point. It's like kind of up and down development cycle to be a top defender in the league, but he's got the tools to be a Brian Rafalski, right? Like, that guy played with Nicholas Lidstrom. Nobody questioned, is he a top pairing defenseman? No. Like, are you a guy who can play 24 minutes a night? Like Ryan Ellis, he's a top pairing. He's not a number one guy. He's never been a number one defenseman. And even he didn't come into the NHL and was like lights out day one. It took him time, and then eventually became a great defenseman. And that's what I think most defensemen are. And Provorov, Sanheim, they're included. They're in their mid-20s. Now they should be kind of turning into men. I know everybody says they are what they are. I don't know where that comes from. The numbers do not say that. You can look at majority of defensemen that have been through the NHL, Chris Pronger included. Unless you're like Nicholas Lidstrom or Cale Makar, you're not really that good until you're like in your mid-20s. And Victor Hedman included. Like, most of these defensemen, Zdeno Chara, they take till their mid-20s. Roman Josi, he didn't even become a superstar until he was in like late 20s. Now people know him as like this high-end defenseman. But in the beginning, he was just like, oh, a really good young defenseman.
All I know is that Mr. York is the first and only player to have ever make me eat my words, because I was sitting at a game as a fan. It was Drew's 1000, sitting with my friends, and I said, Cam, get it together, because I was like, dude, you're not doing anything. 3 seconds after I said that, he met the goal. And I was just like, I had no words. I sat there and I was quiet the rest of the game. My friends looked at me like, are you okay? I'm like, this kid just made me eat my words.
I mean, good. That's what good players do.
And then I had to talk to him a
It's
week
what-
later at a press conference.
Was that the one where you were muted?
No, that was the year prior, jackass.
I just
Reeve
want to make
remembers
sure.
that. Remember the press conference that I got muted on? When we were
I
all on Zoom.
don't remember that very well. No. There's too many of them. Sorry. But I'll say this. Those press conference to call in, they're not that fun because it's like a lot of like just sitting there and waiting. Like, can I get do I have to have a question right now? Wait, are they ready? Oh, no. And now I need another question because a different person. Can I ask him this question? No, probably can't. I need to think of another question. I feel like that's half of like what those calls are.
So annoying.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But yeah.
I wouldn't know. I'm just a fan.
So am I, dude.
Fair enough. In a way, we kind of covered everything, and I got no times for anything
Well,
other than Ivan Fedotov.
oh yeah. Well, I'm down to talk about anything else you guys want to keep talking about. We could talk more about Gauthier. We can talk about Fedotov. But we didn't talk about the qualifying offers.
Oh, you're right. We can do that real quick too.
I have that list. Hold on.
And I feel like you're going to be upset right now, Sam. Let's be honest.
What am I supposed to be holding on to?
Can you just wait a second? You're very impatient.
Says the-
So it says the Philadelphia Flyers have extended a qualifying offer, which is not open for acceptance until July 13th to the following 9 players: forward Wade Allison, forward Jackson Cates, forward Morgan Frost, forward Hayden Hodgson, defenseman Linus Hogberg, forward Tanner Lazinski, forward Zach McEwen, forward Isaac Ratcliffe, forward Owen Tippett, and the Flyers did not qualify the following 3 players: forward Matthew Strome, forward Maxim Sushko, and goalie Kirill Ustimenko.
She's really upset about Usti.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
talk to me.
that
What do you guys think? I'm curious.
I think that's a decent list.
Yeah.
The last 3, I'm not really so upset about the last 3. Matt Strome.
Makes sense. He wasn't going to find a role on this team. Not in the Flyers.
No, the last 3 make sense. Usti.
It was a little surprising because of the Fedotov, because we lost Ivan Fedotov. So you think like, okay, maybe they want to hold on to him just because in case. But my guess is they're going to bring in Kolosov next year. That they're going to try to bring him over to the NHL. The way they talked about him, they were like, he's the best draft pick we've had. They literally said that he's the top draft pick that they've had. So if you think about the players they've taken, and they legitimately think they found another star goalie. So we should be ready for that.
Well, here is what I hashtagged on Twitter to you earlier. Team re-sign Patty Nags.
Well, they might need
another season.
But I think they're going to, well, they need NHL level backup without a doubt.
Yeah.
So Jones might get re-signed.
Well,
he was injured again. He lost time. You can't assume any of those anymore. Fedotov was the only guy that you thought maybe had a chance to really be your NHL backup. Sandstrom could potentially do it as well, but you want him to be number 3 going into the year. You're like, okay, if somebody goes down, I'm comfortable with him being my backup. But realistically, you got to bring in a guy at least like Jones, if not a younger version. And did want to bring this up. I don't think that this would be an option for us, but the qualifying offers around the NHL, like the Flyers are not in as much trouble as people think. And if you really don't believe me, you can look at the qualifying offers for players that were passed up around the NHL today, alongside what they did. And again, who did they give up? Sushko, right? Okay, not a huge loss. Strome, not a big loss. And Ustimenko, not a big loss. They'll probably find home somewhere else. But our org is fine without them. The players that other teams have released, Dylan Strome, Dominic Kubalik, Ilya Samsonov. There's an option for a backup. That's what I was thinking. Sonny Milano, Nicholas Aube-Kubel, Kale Clegg, Rem Pitlick, Victor Mete, Danton Heinen, Andre Kasha, Evgeny Svechnikov, and then also Sam Steele. Like these guys would jump immediately into our prospect pool and be like guys that we would immediately play in our lineup. They're now available as UFAs. There are going to be names of young talent around for us to grab. And I think even a guy like Ustimenko, I think that's why the Flyers are like, okay, well, we can let him go because maybe we don't know about all the players in the league. We can pretend like we do, but they have scouts around. There might be another young goalie available that they want to bring in his mid-20s. Maybe they have a backup plan. We keep saying that they don't. But every single time we keep saying they don't have a plan, there's something that happens. It might not be the moves that we like, but they do have a plan,
And they have to have a plan or they're screwed.
Look, reality is Chuck Fletcher has 1 year right now to turn things around. He could go into next season still being, and I'm talking about after next year, being GM, but that is your plank. Like you're walking into that most likely going to lose your job if you do not turn this around this year. So, but that doesn't mean you need to make us a championship team. It means you need to put the right building blocks for us as fans and us like thought leaders to be staring at the team, look at them and go, okay, you know what? It might not be as good as I want, but I see how things are getting better and I see how we can be even better. And you know what? Cutter Gauthier is coming next year too. Not only we get better, but we have a top 5 pick coming next year. Like that's how we need to feel about our team by the end of the year.
Is your Alexa going off?
Dude, you guys have no idea. I have so much technology. I am being spied on by myself the entire time.
But the top of this list, the 9 players, I'm very happy about Mr. Lazinski. I'm happy about all 9 of them. There's not a player on that list that shouldn't have had a qualifying offer.
I agree. I mean, and you look at some of the players that were let go and the fact that Frost was signed, and a lot of people are like, oh, Flyers are low on him. I mean, Sam Steele was just let go. Dylan Strome was just let go. Dylan Strome was a good player in the NHL. Kubalik is let go.
I'm really okay with these qualifying offers.
Yeah. I wonder what the values will be, though.
Yeah, that's going to be curious.
Some of them. Like, Tippett can't negotiate too much.
No, he can't.
Even though they want to keep him, but it probably won't do longer than 2 years, my guess. For most of them.
Yeah, Frost probably isn't going to get much more than a couple years for a couple million type thing.
I think you get probably around $1 million.
Now,
one way.
Hayden had a 2-year AHL deal. Does this cancel that out?
Hodgson canceled that contract out in the end of the season when he signed a pro contract for the rest of the season with the Flyers. So that contract ended. Now but he was an RFA, so they decided to extend him, which means realistically he will be a top player on the Phantoms. They still see him that way. Very least he's going to be a big role, even if it's a bottom 6 role physically. But I think they probably think that they can call him up like they did Willman at times in the year to play in the 4th line, like that physical role, like Zach McEwen-esque.
Like I said, there's not a kid on this list that
Well, we don't really. Most of our talent is not at that point. Like we have kind of like this weird gap because of things didn't work out with certain players. Like Phil Myers disappeared, right? But Nolan Patrick being like that crop, we kind of screwed up. Rubtsov, we screwed up with some of those first round picks. There's no denial about it. I mean, Rubtsov didn't turn out. Patrick didn't turn out. We had some good picks in between. Pascal LeBerge didn't turn out, right? We missed on some stuff we were supposed to hit. And I think, that's where Hextall. Hextall is an average GM. So far, we have yet to have a great GM in a while since Holmgren, which people get really mad at that. But It's the last time we had I mean, people could say whatever they want. The reality is he took it over. They were the worst team in the league. The next year, he took us to Eastern Conference Finals. They were like pretty good and getting like a little bit better over the years. And then he made a huge trade for Chris Pronger, took the team to the next level. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals. They lost in a Game 6. And then he blew it up where they were like pretty good. And then Hextall took over. And, you know, he was the best GM we've had recently.
Fair enough.
I mean, results wise.
Yeah, I haven't been probably in like a solid 8 years. I haven't been happy with the Flyers. It's been tough to watch them, and I'm pretty sure that's when Ron Hextall came in. Was roughly 8 years ago.
Yeah,
So
you got sold promise. You saw promise in some things though.
yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely did like when we drafted Nolan Patrick. I saw promise in him, and now the injury bug screwed him up. I saw some promise with other teams where it seemed like Drew had a decent line to play with, but the line just didn't pan out. Like I felt bad for Drew the whole time he was here because it felt like he never really had an actual top line to be on.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but like
I would say he did. I think it's the support around that he didn't have. Like when he didn't have a top line, it's because Voracek was taken off his line. But if you look at a line of Giroux, Couturier, and Voracek, that is the top line in the league. That was a line we had something like that for a while. You know, we had TK on that line too. Also, I would say top line in the league. But it's not just that, to your point. It's like if you take G away from Couturier and put him with Kevin Hayes, it's not a top line, right? It's like we didn't have the depth to really, and that's why I was saying you add an elite center on this team, it's a complete game changer. If you have a 1-2 punch of Couturier and a legit number one star center, and you and Kevin Hayes your third line center, you're gonna be so difficult to defend. And you're talking about like, let's say Gauthier turns into a star second year. Let's say he comes in 60-point player, and it's Sean Couturier number one, Cutter Gauthier number two, and Hayes, and they're all Gauthier is 6'2.5". They're literally all like 6'3" and up. Like, imagine how difficult that is to defend against as a team. That's how you build an identity. It's like, okay, we're a team that's strong down the middle. We're big, strong, and physical, right? And then we have defensemen who can move the puck out of the zone quickly, right? Like, this is stuff we have to figure out.
Yeah, and eventually, I feel like eventually we will. We have a lot of young guys that we still don't know about. So within the next 4 years, I feel like we're going to have a much better understanding of what this team will really be. Granted, a lot of people in the fan base is not going to want to wait that long. No. They want results yesterday.
Yeah, don't blame them.
Yeah,
but
and when that whole Tony DeAngelo thing happened, Friday, and I got the news, my two worlds collided, and I didn't know what to do. I had Canes fan base coming at me. I had Flyers fan base coming at me. Both my worlds collided, and Sam didn't know what to do. My thoughts on it is I've been dealing with Tony DeAngelo for one season. 2 more seasons isn't going to kill me. There's nothing we can do about it. I know how certain people feel about him.
Everything I've seen has been negative for the most. Well, not.
What do you mean?
Like
what do you mean negative?
Everything.
What do you mean? Like you've seen
as
like because of his past.
Even on Twitter,
you mean like online, the response.
Yeah, a lot of the responses that I've seen after the Flyers traded for him, like from a few people I saw. Good luck, both. Flyers fans.
I've seen both,
but I haven't really seen any real positive ones other than he can be a good power play guy.
He is a good power play guy. That's without a doubt.
He is.
That's what I'm saying. It like if we take that out and you just look at the puck playing skills, the passing, the shooting. I'm telling you guys, look at this guy shoot. He's no joke. You look at the way this guy plays offense. The skill is legit. It's one of the best offensive defensemen we've had on this team for a long time, probably. Just skill wise. Will he work out? I don't know.
We'll find
Who
out.
knows? Things collapse here. But
yeah.
I get that he's controversial. And again, I go back to my initial statement. You look at what Kevin Hayes released publicly. That was strategic on purpose by the Flyers to have a text message from Kevin Hayes literally saying that Tony DeAngelo is this amazing dude. Like, everybody loves Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes friends with everybody. They're vouching for him already. Like, I get the negativity, but I get that. And I understand why people are skeptical, but I think we just need to let them sort it out. If it doesn't work out, it'll bite us in the ass. But quite frankly, we should have taken the risk last year. Like, we paid Yandle the same that they paid Tony DeAngelo. Tony DeAngelo was a top pairing defenseman, put up 50 plus points, almost 60 points for them. And Yandle was a minus 35 for us.
Yeah.
If we would have got him last year, we would have signed him cheaper this time. So
My response to everybody asking me, like, what do you think is, look, he's here for 2 years. There's nothing we can do about it. We cannot control it.
well,
Move on. Let the guy play. Like,
but this is like getting Keith Yandle when he's 26 years old, which was an all-star. So, like, I get that people – let's see if the locker room can sort it out. Like, if it works out with Provorov, because they're going to put Provorov and DeAngelo together. If not, they'll put Provorov with Ristolainen, or they'll put Sanheim up there. They'll move up York.
they're going to put two of the stronger D-men together.
I think for sure they brought him in for Provorov. You look at the fact that he was playing with Yuri Slavin. I'm not really sure what people are talking about that Slavin can do and Provorov can't. Like, I get Slavin's a great defenseman. I do. I get that.
Slavin's great.
I still see Provorov as having a higher ceiling than that. I understand that Provorov has had a down year, but the idea is to get him a partner so his game excels. So if he did it for Slavin, I believe that it can happen here in Philly. Will it work? No, because we don't know. Like, did everybody know Sanheim and Ristolainen? They had great chemistry. If you look at the end of the year, Sanheim's game dropped off as Risto was out. Like, they do work together, like, a lot. Sanheim's confidence grows when Risto's in the lineup. I think a lot of players' confidence grow when he's in the lineup, and that's why he got so much money.
Yeah, for sure.
That might suck to hear, but that's why John Tortorella is now coach of this team.
Yeah,
soft. We were soft.
That's what a lot of
we are. We
that's
were.
What Cam Atkinson said. That's what John
There's
Tortorella said.
Dude, Hartnell said at the beginning of the year. Said at the very beginning of the year publicly on television.
Yeah, like, I was not a fan. I was not a fan this year. It seemed like whenever somebody got hit, nobody would defend other than Zach McEwen.
They did in the beginning of the year. Remember the beginning of the year with I'm talking about the very beginning when things were good.
It's been like the first 5 games.
Amazing. Remember that first game? Nick Sealer dropped the glove. We won. We're like, oh my god,
I was at that game.
Got it. They're in first place, even though they're not playing their best. They're still in first place.
I was at that game.
They were exciting to watch, and then they went on a 10-game losing streak, and
they're exciting because like Joel Farabee and Cam Atkinson were scoring on every shot they were taking of the wing. It was just they would just skate up and rip a shot and go and be like, oh shit.
When they went on that first 10-game losing streak, I was like, there's my Flyers.
I love that. The first 10-game losing streak. Did we go on 3 in the end? No, it was 2.5. Let's say 2.5, right? We had like another mini losing streak later. We had like a 10, and then like a 7 or something.
13. No,
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure it was 10 and 13, and then we went on like a 5
7.
6.
Okay,
shortly after.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Good season.
But yeah,
great season.
Good times.
If you take out the success of the beginning of the year, which again you can't because they were healthy at the beginning of the year, but if you take that success out, you are looking at the worst team in the National Hockey League probably at the
big time
the second half.
For sure.
And definitely competing to be at the very bottom.
And John would have been very happy because we would have gotten like a 2nd-round pick or a second pick.
But it wouldn't have mattered. If you look at this draft, it literally would have been irrelevant. The number 1 guy dropped to 4. And from what I understand, the Flyers would have maybe taken Nemec first, but they were probably taking, it was like Slavkovsky, Nemec, and Gauthier and Cooley. Like that was their 4. And I don't think they felt like they lost. I really don't. I don't think we did. I'm tired
I
of
don't
going.
think we did either.
Look, we have to learn from the past. Unless a guy has been indicated way ahead of time, like an Austin Matthews or McDavid, like, and you're like, this guy for sure potential generational talent, right? Unless that's really been identified, you don't know who the best player in the draft is. If you look at most drafts, the top guy in the draft is not typically taken first overall unless he's identified early. A lot of time, there is a guy that's drafted late in the draft. You can say that's the best player. Look at the Claude Giroux draft. You can make a case that he's one of the best players for sure from that draft. Statistically, without a doubt, he's in the top 3, top 5 at the very least. I think Backstrom's in that draft too. And they're like 2 of the best players. They were not taken in the top of the draft. So it's like we have no idea who the best player is. We need to make sure that we at least got one of them. One of them. We need one of them this time.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that hopefully it's the best. Like nobody even has talked about the fact that he could theoretically be the best player to come out of this draft. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's even the most likely. But the same possibility for him to be a 50-point, 40-point player is the same possibility for him to be the best player in the draft. And he'll probably not end up either way. He'll probably end up like pretty good, History tells us that.
With the way the Flyers do developing people. Yeah.
I mean, they used to be good at it. They used to be really good at it. Like when they would draft a center in the first round, it was a hit. Like pretty much every time.
I'm trying to Nick Schultz?
God damn it, Alexa. This is Alexa.
Who is the Flyers developmental coach right now?
I don't even know where it's coming from.
I'm sorry, Yuri.
Sorry, I don't even know which one it's coming from. What were you asking, Patrick?
Who is the Flyers developmental coach right now?
I can't remember. There's a series of them.
Isn't it Nick Schultz?
Nick Schultz?
Well, I mean, Mike O'Connell's head of player development, if that's what you mean. But there's a team of like the player development. It's not just one guy.
Because I never really, I think I was thinking of Nick Schultz.
We could I'm not an expert at the staff, but they do have a whole staff. Nick Schultz is one of them, and even Sam Morin was added to them too.
Yeah, I was never a huge fan of Nick Schultz.
Yeah, but just because
he played,
just because a guy isn't a good player, that doesn't mean he can't be a great coach. Some of the best coaches were horrible players, like super mediocre.
Fair enough.
Ken Hitchcock, you told me that guy was a thoroughbred athlete. Come on,
I don't even know who that was.
You don't know who Ken Hitchcock was?
No.
Looked like Humpty Dumpty. It's like Andy Reid. Actually, it was the same
Oh my
time.
God.
Remember that? That was the same era, actually. Andy Reid and Ken Hitchcock were here at the same time. Ken Hitchcock won a cup, though. I mean, he was a great coach. But John Stevens wasn't really good. Though I will say, there is something weird to a GM. Like if you look at the best GMs in the league right now, they're all ex-superstar players. Like almost all of them. Like you can make the case Brendan Shanahan and Toronto, he's president. And now Sakic just got promoted president, right? Yzerman, Blake in LA, he turned that team around really fast. Bill Guerin, Minnesota. Thank God we have Briere. And is that like the secret sauce? You just find a guy who like has competed in the playoffs at a high level and they can just handle the intensity of being a GM. Like they can just win trades. Like, if you look at that trade that Joe Sakic made to trade Duchesne, he got nothing but crap. He was told he was holding too long. He's not going to get value. He ended up getting a ridiculous amount of value because he didn't undervalue his own asset, which people want to do here to us. He waited. He got what he wanted, and he got Cale Makar out of it. And he turned that team around. I remember people were laughing at Joe Sakic. Patrick Waugh quit on them as a coach. He's like, I can't coach this team. Oh, yeah. Again, I'll say this to this show. I say, if you guys listen to my show, Getting Gritty with It, I say this all the time. Anytime you see a coach saying, this group doesn't have what it takes, I need this, this, and this, fire that coach immediately. That guy's just making excuses. Get rid of him. It's the worst. Okay. It's the worst leadership skills that you could honestly hear. You want a guy who can get the most out of the group that he has. That's it. That's it. If I get you more talent, great. I'm always going to try to get you more talent. But I need you to squeeze as much as you can. That's why the Flyers shouldn't go nuts. They should bring Tortorella and be like, look, these guys are good. Make them good again. What happened? Like this guy TK was an all-star. Why is he not an all-star anymore? Like, get Provorov to be a number one defenseman.
I'm so excited to see if Tortorella can bring back the old TK. I want TK to be that pest again, because whenever he was a pest and under people's faces, that's when he produced.
Engaged.
Even this year, when you saw signs of him being a little pest and going after people, he produced.
Yeah.
But then
I want the annoying TK. I want the annoying TK back.
Mm-hmm.
That's like,
well, doesn't that go back to what I was saying? Is that our team didn't have that? We're like, Travis Konecny was gonna be like, we need to be that team again. People might not, they think that's old school, fine, whatever, but we need to be a difficult team to play against. It starts with being annoying. Like it does. It starts to be annoying to play against.
I want to see him make that face again this year. Face, whatever face he made that one game.
I honestly want teams to come in and be like, Pittsburgh be like, oh my God, we got to play these guys again. I want the teams to be like, coming from North Carolina being like, bro, I don't want to go to Philly.
We used to be that team, even though we weren't even that good. We were that team. It was always teams hated coming here because we were mean to them and our team was mean. Like we were mean. We were mean to the other team, like pretty much every time. Like, behind out of the game, we'd be polite. We'd share our hospital service, always helping. But on the ice, we were like there's stories of that with like Craig Anderson and stuff. Flyers always treat players like a ton of respect. But like the reality is, like when you came here to play, like that, that Russia Red Army team story, right? Like they came here and they just beat the NHL All-Stars. The Red Russian Army team came to the United States. They just beat the NHL All-Stars. And then they came to play the Flyers, and the Flyers beat the shit out of them. They beat them 5-2. They wanted to quit halfway through the game. Ed Snyder went down to their locker room and said, if you guys don't go back on the ice, you're not getting paid. And that's the only reason they finished that game and came out of the ice to play, because they did not want to play against the Flyers, because no matter what happened, even if they would score a goal, you're going to be punished for everything you do. Mm-hmm. You score a goal, you're going to be checked. You get around me, I'm going to trip you. I'm going to hook you. I'm going to whatever we can do today, whatever our version of that today is, we need to figure that out, and we need to start doing that. And I think that's why I get the Ristolainen thing, especially with Ryan Ellis. Realistically, I don't know what's going to happen with him, but he's a complete question mark. You can assume he's out for the year. It's irrelevant. If he comes back, you find a way to make it work. But until then, like, I don't know, remove Provorov off this defense. Like, give me a break. Remove any of these defensemen off of this defense, and it's bleeding. I don't think we can afford to lose any of them. Not right now, at least.
As of right now, no.
No.
That's why I was a little upset we only drafted one defenseman.
Yeah. Yeah, that was weird. I agree with you. I'm surprised they didn't go for like a big defenseman later in the round. See if you can get a physical, grab one of these 6'6" guys like in the third round or something, or fourth round. Yeah. Well, we didn't have fourth round, fifth round.
And we didn't draft any goalies like Sam said, but what does my opinion matter? It's fine.
So I kind of get why they did what they were doing. Just from an organizational depth standpoint, we're not a big enough team on the wings. Not even at the NHL level, at the AHL level, and in the prospect level. We tend to draft like players that do certain things, but like Noah Cates is a good size player. Like we kind of drafted a lot of guys like that this year, but we could even use some size even above that to some degree. I think that's why they focused. I don't think they went nuts with the guys they drafted, but I think that's why size is like some of these guys grow. You know what I mean? They fill out, they grow, they get even bigger. But Zayde Wisdom is part of that. I think the Flyers have plans here to be like, we're gonna be a big, yeah. Like that's our identity, is we're gonna be tough. Like we're not gonna be the Avalanche. Sorry, we're not building Makar.
And if you don't think that some of these kids are big, Tyson Forrester, big kid. Zayde Wisdom, big kid. These kids are huge.
And Ratcliffe is huge.
That's what she said.
Yeah, and He could definitely come onto the team next year. Ratcliffe is absolutely a dark horse to make this team next year. But I like that you brought up Tyson Forrester, and obviously he was brought up today too. Is that looks like he's evolved physically quite a bit. Mike O'Connell talked about that in his press conference, and I'll say that I think it's underestimated how much of an impact a guy like Forrester could make. It's not expected he'll make the team out of camp just because of the injury and whatnot. Maybe if he played all last year. But you look at the combination of like him and Cutter Gauthier, and let's say they both make the Flyers that following year. I mean, you're adding two big, strong, high shooting forwards. And what's his name? Forrester played some center as well. And again, really good around the net, really good hands, a lot of similar skill sets. Like you are building that identity here slowly of like these bigger, stronger guys. And I think eventually these guys are going to start coming in here. I think people will be a little surprised that the identity of this team will change quicker than people realize. And I think it starts with Sean Couturier. I noticed it, like I was listening. I'm sorry, I'm like kind of going off, but I noticed that people don't talk about Couturier anymore. You notice that? Like when they talk about top defensive centers in the league, nobody talks about him. Not even mentioned anymore as top. He's very clear. I would take him over Ryan O'Reilly any day. And I noticed that people don't talk about him at all anymore. That's what happens with being injured 1 year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that was because he was injured.
Yeah. But yeah.
But before we end, just to talk about Ivan Fedotov, I know there was nothing really released by the team, and in talks with Jamie, I'm going to go based off what my source was telling me because of what he was getting. Ivan Fedotov was detained in Russia by the Russian government, military, whatever they want to call it, for evading the military. He essentially played in Russia. You either go serve or you play hockey. Those are your two options. He chose to play hockey. He terminated his contract with the CSKA, which is essentially their military hockey team, and he wanted to come play over here. When he terminated that contract, it basically, he evaded the military. He is now in northern Russia. From what I understand, he is in northern Russia in a Navy training camp and is there until September. He will no longer be joining the Flyers as of right now.
Yep. Makes sense that he wouldn't be joining us.
Yeah.
I would imagine this. If they have any information, they are definitely not going to tell us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like,
no.
even if he's coming over here, you will just be one day. Oh, Ivan Fedotov is in the United States. Because why would you make it public if you're trying to sneak a guy out of the country? I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but I'm saying we won't find out anything, no matter what happens, whether it's Russia takes over or he gets out. Which I don't.
First of all, there is no sneaking a 6'8" giant.
Yeah, I don't think any of that is happening. I'll make that very clear. I would say if you're expecting Ivan Fedotov to be on this team in the next couple of years, do not.
No.
Hopefully he's okay, and maybe he can play hockey afterwards, and maybe they'll let him over to the United States.
I think he's going to be playing on their Navy team. From what I understood.
I think they're going to make him continue to play hockey in Russia. Yeah.
Which is sad because he really wanted to come over here, but
we needed him too.
We needed him, and they don't like us.
It was one of the more promising things that we had going into next season. Was a big 6'8" goalie who was one of the best goalies in Russia. And by the way, all the best goalies in the league have been Russian of late. So
Russian goalies are built different. I can tell you that for a fact.
Damn.
You know, the Canes have a prospect, Pyotr Kochetkov, and that kid is built completely different from any other goalie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well,
but we will not be seeing him.
Hey, Russian goalies have been good for a while. We've had a lot of Russian goalies in the NHL dominate. So
Absolutely. Sorry, Pat. I know it's past your bedtime.
It actually is. We got anything else real quick?
No, I'm good.
up to you guys.
All right. I think this is a good spot to end it at. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. That's impressive for us. We usually do like 40 minutes.
It's
But
probably
there was
because
a
of
lot-
me. I talk a lot.
Well, you had a lot of really good information too.
Oh, I'm
So
glad.
don't
Thanks.
put the blame on yourself for that.
Appreciate that. Guilt removed.
I like Mike's comment.
I can't see the comments.
Hold on.
They're
How
hidden.
about the Flyers play the CSKA and the winner gets fed a toss?
Oh, I love that. Knowing us, we'd lose.
Yeah.
We'd lose and end up getting Carter Hart from us. We're like, God damn it, we lost both of them now.
We don't have any goalies.
Yeah. Back to square one. God damn it.
That
We have
would
doesn't
be
matter.
Sandstrom.
great.
Hey,
That's all
look.
we have.
I'll
Sandstrom, 80.
end with this. One of the players that is kind of like forgotten in the ether a little bit. Carter Hart right now, he potentially, if this team can get their goddamn shit together, he can finally get noticed on the public stage for being how good he really is. He's the best Flyers goaltender that I have seen in my time. The last one was Steve Mason. And people didn't understand that. I said at the time, people thought I was kidding. I was like, he's the best goalie I've seen here. I was like, that's not saying much, but it was. Carter Hart is much better than Steve Mason. So if he can continue doing it, the team can be good. We have an all-star goalie here. Like, God
We
damn
really
it,
do.
I'm so frustrated.
We really do. You're not
God damn it.
wrong. We really do.
Tortorella, fix this freaking team. Sorry, I almost cursed.
I take really good pictures of Carter Hart, just saying.
Yes, you do. You're on top of your game, Sam.
Now get the Flyers on top of their game.
Yeah.
I can't do
Now.
that.
Fix them.
All right. Thank you all for watching episode 21 of the Pucking Flyers podcast. Go follow us on Twitter at Pucking Flyers. Maybe follow us on Instagram because I don't think Sam still posts on there.
I posted something. I posted Cutter. God, I did something this week.
I mean, honestly, it's Instagram. That's kind of like a dying social media at this point. And you can directly support us on Anchor and Spotify. Just go follow us, Pucking Flyers. And yeah, that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you all for watching. We will catch you 2 weeks from now at 8:30. John may be back. I don't know. He may go out of the country again. I don't know. He apparently likes not being on this show very much because, cruises are better or something. So until next time, guys.
What
much
an
love.
idiot.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
seriously. Much love. Stay safe and peace out.
Bye, guys.